I'm Dean Walker from a little organization on the interwebs called Living Resilience. And I'm also the host of the Poetry of Predicament, which is a podcast and a YouTube channel. And we've been producing resources and support and practices to be in service to the collapse aware and collapse acceptant communities for about 10 years now. It's really been quite a run. And we're just on the cusp of launching our largest scale offering um, in those 10 years. And it's called Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. And it's going to be a year-long program from September 2024 to September 2025. It's going to be a couple of Zoom calls on a couple of Saturdays each month in that year. And all the information that you might need if you're interested at all in this program is all that information is down in the show notes. And this particular video is relatively short. Just wanted to give you a more direct and really palpable example of the writing of Jack Adam Weber in his book Climate Cure: Heal Yourself to Heal the Planet. And there's a long list of reasons why I've asked Jack to contribute to this year-long program by being the first book in a series of book club choices that we're going to be running in parallel to this Islands of Sanity course. And why I'm installing that book in such a prime location is we may use occasionally just slightly different jargon or syntax for what we're talking about, but there's an immense overlap in the subject matter, in the context, and the potency of Jack's writing, and certainly in his therapeutic practice. He's a somatic therapist and longtime Chinese medicine practitioner. Uh, he is also one of the most extraordinary translators for the somatic experience, for somatic healing, for accessing somatic wisdom in our lives. He just has a way of being able to orient people like myself, perhaps like you as well, to be able to distill important learning, important wisdom from our bodies in the process of healing, in the process of seeking more self-awareness in a time of immense stressors, global existential stressors. And that is the nature of his book, Climate Cure. And we're going to be one part of this Islands of Sanity series. In these first 3 months, we're going to be, again, reading Climate Cure, and half of the 1 hour sessions in the months of September, October, November 2024 are going to be speaking about and exploring his book, Climate Cure. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a sample of what Jack has to say in terms of very early on in the book, in the first chapter, some of the neighborhood that he lays out for us to orient ourselves to this extraordinary, existentially threatening time in human history, and how we might find a wisdom, an orientation to those great stressors within our own body, within our own healing, within our own consideration of how much trauma is residual in our own personal systems, in our own bodies. Let me just read you a little bit, give you a little bit of a sample. Those of you who've been around the book club here in Living Resilience, that's the name of the little organization. Those of you who have been involved with over the past couple of years, any of the remarkable books we've had in our book club. Um, would like to invite you to come on in and be with us, whether or not you're interested in the program, the year-long program of Islands of Sanity. I would invite you to come in and dive in with us into uh, climate cure. This is an extraordinary book, and he orients us to invaluable resources and access to the messages that are available within our body, within those unhealed and unmetabolized traumas and griefs and so on. Again, just a brief sample. I hope you enjoy. I hope you can get a taste of Jack's brilliant writing and his sharing his wisdom with us. It's difficult to expect anyone living paycheck to paycheck or with other serious challenges to agonize over climate crisis. Paradoxically, however, empowering ourselves to climate activism can bolster our well-being, as climate prodigy and 2019 Nobel Peace Prize nominee Greta Thunberg did to overcome her climate-induced depression. Perhaps we also fear the overwhelming emotions the difficult issues stir, for which we have no adequate forum to share our concern and feelings, and the accompanying sacrifices we'd feel compelled to make if we took the bad news to heart. In truth, we have not done enough, and the discussion to cure the climate crisis continues to focus almost exclusively on what must be done outwardly. Something deeper is missing from the equation. And of course, he's going to be talking about the inner work of collapse, or inner work in his parlance of the climate crisis. And that, of course, is the main theme of this work in Living Resilience. Our collective inaction has propelled me to wonder what allows us to willfully, even nonchalantly, march toward collapse and our own demise. I have meditated on this question for years, searching for a radical etiology or root cause for our folly. Even if we address the numerous cognitive biases with which evolution and cultural conditioning have wired us, we still haven't answered what it would take to empower enough of us to sufficiently care for the natural world and our own survival. We lack a strategy for how to care enough, even to learn why we don't care enough. We are still without a roadmap for how to become inwardly, and for many underprivileged, also outwardly, resourced enough, and therefore fulfilled enough to do without many of the superfluities that exacerbate our Sasquatch-sized carbon footprints and perpetuate our complacency. In the pages ahead, we address precisely these issues by learning how to, one, psychospiritually cope with and passionately thrive through climate crisis. Two, become the kind of people capable of acting more wisely and effectively. Three, leverage the effects of climate crisis as an opportunity to profoundly transform ourselves and the world. And item four, increase our capacity for love and connection as climate chaos worsens. To engage these changes would be a humble gesture toward all we have hitherto treated so poorly. In this, we find integrity and amends to let everything breathe more easily as the short-lived sun of industrial civilization sets. He then goes on in this next short section about his triangle of resilience relationships. This is really a cornerstone for this entire book. It's one of the core distinctions that he relies on to bring us towards sense making in these times. The triangle of resilience relationships, drawing primarily from climate science, holistic medicine, depth psychology, neuroscience, the poetic tradition, and deep ecology. We will explore how we've arrived at our current precipice. We'll learn how to grapple with and grow from this dangerous predicament in the most honest, skillful, and wholehearted way we can. The climate crisis is generated both by our individual contributions and by corrupt governments and corporations. And while we've all contributed to the problem, the corporate elite are especially guilty. Their negligence has manifested as murderous corruption, dishonesty, endless pollution, war-making, and mercenary fundamentalism. Most of the rest of us have succumbed to apathy, denial, and a lack of courage to rebel and deny our society's manipulative enticements and do without, live more modestly. On the bright side, recent climate strikes and resistance movements are beginning to move the chains. With this in mind, I propose three primary invisible drivers for why we destroy the planet and continue to. So this is a short list of primary drivers he's suggesting for why we are basically a self-terminating culture on this finite planet. The first and foremost driver is our fear and failure to be sufficiently transformed by our emotional pain, past and present, including traumas large and small. This dynamic results in hurt people hurt others, including Earth, and is explored in his section 3 of this book. Climate crisis has been initiated and perpetuated by our collective, unresolved, difficult emotions, especially our need to grieve. Psychological depth work, what I also refer to as death and rebirth work, helps liberate our vitality from past loss and wounding to break this cycle of needless destruction and demise. The second driver is our disconnect from the natural world with which we have co-evolved for millennia, a relationship elaborated in section 4 of his book. I hope you're getting that your interest is piqued in the, exploring through these different sections of the book that he's talking about. This is an extraordinary orientation to a wholesome and possibly evolutionary progress that we could engage ourselves with, both individually and collectively with others. The last driver is our loss of heartfelt, tightly knit community, which we shared for our entire history until it became eroded by a modern individualism. Again, he covers that extensively in one of the later chapters. These three drivers, with self, nature, and one another, represent three primary relationships, our triangle of resilience relationships. Our neglect of these relationships is a radical cause for the symptom of climate crisis. So again, just a brief taste of Jack Adam Weber's extraordinary writing and his conveying of his extensive experience with trauma healing, with the metabolizing of the extraordinary scale of unmetabolized collective grief and trauma upon which much of the world is based, and especially the USA. It is literally the underpinning of the entire nation's history. So I hope you will consider joining us in the either the book club portion of what I've just been describing, or the book club in parallel with the Islands of Sanity in a Mad World year-long program, that is meant to be an opportunity to come together to do exactly the kind of inner work that Jack is pointing to in Climate Cure. So here's an opportunity. Again, all the instructions that you might need if you're interested in signing up for this Islands of Sanity in a Mad World course or the book club, both of which would ask you to first join up with us in our Living Resilience online community um, platform, community gathering space. Um, yeah, this is an extraordinary time. I'm after 10 years of being involved with offering transformative support resources and practices to the collapse aware and collapse acceptant communities. I'm seeing us shift to a whole different level of the presence of and the scale of the stressors that the world is confronted by now. So I hope you will take this time to connect with either or both of these program offerings. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask me about any of the offerings of Living Resilience, that information, contact information is available in the show notes as well. Thank you for listening. I hope this has been useful and look forward to hopefully seeing you in one of our course offerings in the coming months. Bye.